Sadhguru, this morning, those accused in the recent Hyderabad rape and murder case, they were shot dead by the police in an encounter. As a woman, I am quite disturbed with this series of events. But at the same time, I feel justice is served. Sadhguru, do you also feel that they got what they deserved?
Well, what happened to that young woman? Unfortunately, is not an isolated case. And this is not just happening in this country, it's happening all over the world. Just on the basis of gender, that a human being is brutalized in this way is happening everywhere. It was at a much lower scale in this country simply because till this generation, largely women were protected, they were indoors, in their homes. There was not much room for these things. It happened with people that they know. This kind of brutalization was not there because normally women were in protected spaces. This is the first generation stepping out, and now this is on the rise. One terrible event after another, one more brutal than the other is happening. Well, if you were a close friend or a family of this young woman, definitely you would want to do this. Just let me tell you how it is. So I'm talking about a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, I was in California and something similar happened in California. And we were discussing this and different people saying different things because I was with a group of people who are against capital punishment. They don't believe in capital punishment. I also don't want to hang anybody. But at the same time, when certain things happen, not just as crime, somebody has taken absolute pleasure in tormenting, demoralizing and making a human being absolutely wretched. They just didn't do it, they took enormous pleasure in doing it. So this discussion was going on and this particular person who is an activist against capital punishment, it got very heated. Then I asked, see, suppose, because he had a 14-15-year-old daughter, and the case that we were discussing was somewhere near that kind of age group. I said, suppose something like this happened to your daughter, would you still say what you're saying so vehemently? What would you do? Then he sat back. Then he said, I would gouge this guy's eyeballs out with my own hands, I would cut his genitals, I would do this, that, everything, and I would want him to die taking 3 days at least to die. I said, see? So that kind of emotion is there in people. Now the killing by the police, if you go this way, you will not have a civilized nation left. If the police and the judiciary start acting upon families' emotion or people's emotions, then there will be no rule of law at all. In the process of building a civilized nation or a society, rule of law is not always justice. Rule of law is not justice. Rule of law prevents a whole lot of things that could happen. Well, right now you must understand this, the rule of law is like this. Suppose you have an automobile, you have a motorcycle, and this guy comes and rides it away and he hides it in his house. So you gather a group of 5 people, go there, thrash him and take your motorcycle and come back. Now you will go to jail. This is the rule of law. Because you're supposed to go and complain to the police. So this looks so totally unjust, but if we give up the rule of law, then jungle will come into the town, okay? So whether the police shoot or the crowd lynched him, what is the big difference? Actually, crowd is standing in front of the police station and demanding, hand those guys over to us, we will take care of them. They would have lynched them. Well, in the parliament, people are saying, let's lynch them. Parliament. Well, this is the emotion when you see the wretched thing that they have done. No question about it, not that we have any sympathies for them. But if you give up the rule of law and start doing these things, how do you know? How do you know? This is the most unpopular thing to say, you will get me into trouble, but let me say it. How do you know? Suppose I am the police person and today there's a huge pressure in the town that this has happened. What do? The first four guys who are sitting here pick them up and say, these are the guys. And if I wait for 2 days, these guys are going to speak. So best thing is shoot them or hang them in the prison and say they committed suicide. That's it, case closed, my job is done, I get a medal. I'm saying there are many loopholes to this kind of things. So once you go into that region, then there is no control. Right now, the nation's emotion is such that the right thing has been done to these four people. Well, I don't want to go into the details of it could be anything, but at the same time, in the cover of darkness, if these four people had escaped, then what would the nation say? Then every one of us would be saying, these police are so incompetent, they are no good for anything, they are probably cahoots with them, maybe the policeman also raped that girl, all kinds of things would come out. Journalism would go loose on everything. So there are many aspects to it, it's a terribly sensitive matter. But should we move towards going for quick justice? If a crime happens, tomorrow morning shoot them or hang them. Well, if you bring back the kangaroo courts, then you will be taking a backward step in our efforts to civilize this world. Don't think the world is civilized, okay? You have to constantly, in every generation, move them towards civilization, constantly. Otherwise, they will go backwards with these emotions. When something that's precious to me has been lost, then I will say, let's break the law and do this, because it hurts me so much. So, it's a very unfortunate scene. It is not for you or me to take sides, which is right, which is wrong. This is the unfortunate reality, but I would say largely this is a consequence of inordinately slow judicial process. That everybody knows if you go to the court, it is going to take 10 years. If my daughter is raped, do I want to wait for 10 years? Definitely not. Right now, the other parents of the another brutal rape and murder of Nirbhaya in Delhi, those parents are saying, this is a good thing that happened, I want the same thing to happen to the perpetrators who did the same thing to my daughter. Why? After 7 years, they're still not hung. The sentence has been given, but appeal after appeal, they will go to a higher court and a higher court. His whole life he will spend in the prison and we are paying taxes for him. Yes, we are. When somebody as level-headed, when someone who is as balanced and level-headed as Anand Mahindra says, I will volunteer to be a hangman, because they're saying there's no hangman. Because everybody said no capital punishment, so hangmen have been fired, no hangman. So even if you give a sentence, nobody to pull the rope. When somebody like Anand Mahindra, who is a very level-headed and astute businessman, when he says, I will volunteer, you must understand that justice is too bloody slow, too slow, inhumanly slow. If we don't do something about this will become the norm. It's picked up momentum. Country's emotion is with the police, which is not a good thing. Long term, this is not a good thing for the country.